Are you overwhelmed by the never-ending supply of depressing bad news? Well, let's refuel our tanks. Girl 13 with incurable cancer recovers after pioneering treatment in London is the Giddy News headline courtesy of Gergana Kristeva with Metro UK, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. A girl's incurable cancer has been cleared from her body after what scientists have described as the most sophisticated cell engineering to date. 13-year-old Alyssa was first diagnosed with T-cell acute lymphoblastic leukemia in May of 2021. After a round of chemotherapy and a bone marrow transplant failed to rid the disease, doctors told Alyssa's parents there was nothing more that they could do. However, Alyssa decided to undergo an experimental new treatment. Scientists at Great Ormond Street Hospital for Children in London gave Alyssa pre-manufactured cells edited using new technology that allows them to hunt down and destroy cancerous T-cells. Less than a month after being given the treatment, Alyssa was in remission. She is said to be doing well at home as she recovers and continues with follow-up monitoring. Her mom said the family was on cloud nine and that it was amazing to be home. This is the world's first such treatment, and Alyssa's recovery gives hope to many thousands of patients. Alabama town learns farmer secretly paid people's pharmacy bills is the Giddy News headline courtesy of Ramon Antonio Vargas with The Guardian, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. A small town in Alabama is honoring a man who paid off his neighbor's pharmacy bills for years and kept his generosity a secret until shortly before his death. In 2012, Hody Childress, a farmer and U.S. Air Force veteran, walked into a drugstore in his small Alabama hometown of Geraldine and learned from the owner that families sometimes can't afford to pay for their medicines. Childress responded by handing $100 to Brooke Walker, owner of Geraldine Drugs, saying to save it for anyone who can't afford their prescription, and not to tell anyone the money came from Childress. Childress went back to the pharmacy monthly over the following decade, each time handing Walker a $100 bill for the same purpose. Members of his own family regularly visited the pharmacy without ever knowing what he was up to. This was until the final year of his life when he struggled to move while fighting chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and other health problems. The 80-year-old needed someone to take his $100 bill to Geraldine Drugs and so entrusted the task to his daughter, Tanya. Tanya stated that she was shocked and had no idea that he was helping people at the drugstore. She then told those at her father's funeral about what he would do at Geraldine Drugs. Word quickly spread around town, inspiring Childress's family, friends, and other admirers to start contributing to his fund to allow it to continue. Aviation startup ZeroAvia flies largest ever hydrogen electric aircraft is the Giddy News headline courtesy of Megan Cerullo with CBS News, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. A startup company made aviation history when it successfully flew the largest ever hydrogen electric-powered aircraft, which could pave the way for more environmentally friendly flights. ZeroAvia's 19-seat plane, the Dornier 228, took off from Cotswold Airport in Gloucestershire, UK, for a 10-minute flight. Retrofitted with a prototype hydrogen electric powertrain, it performed as expected and marks a major milestone for the future of zero-emission aviation. Hydrogen is considered among the most promising alternate fuel sources, and the demonstration marks a major step forward in ZeroAvia's goal of operating commercial routes with its technology by 2025. The company's customers have pre-ordered 1,500 engines and counts commercial carriers American and United Airlines among its investors in technology to decarbonize air travel. ZeroAvia is also working on a powertrain that can fly aircraft with up to 90 seats. Plant-based meat now costs less than animal meat in the Netherlands is the Giddy News headline courtesy of Amy Buxton with Plant-Based News, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. After recent increases in the cost of animal meat, plant-based meat in the Netherlands is now the cheaper of the two. Researchers compared meat and plant-based products within strict parameters, All items were the lowest price options, with portion sizes being matched. Plant-based burgers were found to be 78 cents cheaper per kilo than meat alternatives. Similarly, vegan chicken pieces were 37 cents cheaper than their animal counterparts. Increasing scarcity and disruptions in the world market is part of the cause, as plant-based items are relatively unaffected by increased supplier charges attributed to inflation and the rising cost of raw materials. Cost is frequently cited as a stumbling block to turning vegan, but Oxford University states that the misunderstanding often stems from comparing conventional meat to specialist substitutes. The institution's research found vegan and vegetarian diets are, in actuality, the most cost-effective options in high-income countries. Dr. Marco Springman, a researcher at Oxford University, stated, "We think the fact that vegan, vegetarian, and flexitarian diets can save you a lot of money is going to surprise people." Turning problem sea algae into a replacement for plastic is the Giddy News headline, courtesy of Joe Harper with the BBC, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. Excessive outbreaks of seaweed and microalgae have been clogging up waters from the Caribbean to the Baltic, but now both are being harvested to create ingredients for cosmetics and food products and as a replacement for plastic. Finnish biochemist Dr. Mari Granström says it was her passion for scuba diving that opened her eyes to the continuing problem of toxic microalgae blooms in the Baltic Sea. The outbreaks occur when tiny cyanobacteria suddenly multiply rapidly, stretching out for kilometers on top of the water. Also called eutrophication, it is a form of marine suffocation, and it is a significant environmental concern in the Baltic Sea. The blooms impact other marine life by causing oxygen deficiency, reducing water quality, and blocking out light. The problem is caused by too many nutrients, typically nitrogen and phosphorus, from artificial fertilizers entering the sea via the rivers of the surrounding countries. But Dr. Granström's company, Origin by Ocean, collects microalgae off the coast of Finland and uses its patented biorefinery technology to separate the algae into numerous usable materials. These materials are then sold to food, cosmetics, textiles, packing, and agriculture companies, ultimately giving consumers an opportunity to help clean up the sea. Fender's blue butterfly moves off endangered species list is the Giddy News headline, courtesy of Tracy Lowe with the Salem Statesman Journal, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. The Fender's blue butterfly, found only in Oregon's Willamette Valley, is moving off the endangered species list. The United States Fish and Wildlife Service announced the butterfly will be reclassified as threatened based on the recovery of its population. The Fender's blue, which has a 1-inch wingspan, is so rare it was presumed extinct until small populations were rediscovered in 1989. The butterfly now inhabits twice the acreage it did when it was listed as endangered in 2000, and the number of occupied sites has quadrupled. Near Salem, the butterflies can be found at Basket Slough National Wildlife Refuge, where thousands of Kincaid's lupine were planted, as the butterflies are completely dependent upon that plant, which itself is a threatened species. Additionally, near Eugene, the butterflies can be found in the Nature Conservancy's Willow Creek Preserve. Quinn Reed, Oregon Policy Director at the Center for Biological Diversity, said, "The Endangered Species Act has ensured the full recovery of more than 50 species, and the Fender's blue is now well on its way. We can celebrate its recovery along with the 50th anniversary of the landmark law that saved this species." First small modular nuclear reactor certified for use in the United States is the Giddy News headline, courtesy of Jennifer McDermott with the Associated Press, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. For many, nuclear power is emerging as an answer as states and countries transition away from coal, oil, and natural gas to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and stave off the worst effects of a warming planet. And now the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission has certified the design for the United States' first small modular nuclear reactor. The United States Energy Department said the newly approved design equips the nation with a new clean power source to help drive down planet-warming greenhouse gas emissions. Companies seeking to build and operate a nuclear power plant can pick the design for a 50 megawatt advanced light water small modular nuclear reactor by Oregon-based NuScale Power and apply to the Commission for a license. Catherine Huff, Assistant Secretary for Nuclear Energy, said the modular reactors are ready for deployment thanks to the hard work of NuScale, the university community, our national labs, industry partners, and the NRC. The first module is expected to be operational by 2029. United States cancer death rate falls 33% since 1991, is the Giddy News headline courtesy of Jacqueline Howard with CNN, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. The American Cancer Society reported that the rate of people dying from cancer in the United States has continuously declined over the past 3 decades, for a total of 33% since 1991, saving an approximate 3.8 million lives. This is especially welcome news as the U.S. cancer death rate had previously risen during most of the 20th century, largely due to an increase in lung cancer deaths related to smoking. The report attributes this progress due not just to a decrease in overall smoking, but also to improvements in cancer treatment and an increase in early detection. Researchers also pointed to HPV vaccinations as connected to reductions in cancer deaths because HPV infections can cause cancer, and vaccinations have been linked with a decrease in new cancer cases. Among women in their early 20s, there was a 65% drop in cervical cancer rates from 2012 through 2019, which follows the time when HPV vaccines were put into use. Ernest Hawk, Vice President of Cancer Prevention and Population Sciences at the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center, stated that the new report demonstrates important and consistent advances against cancer. New innovation leads to environmentally friendly solar cells, is the Giddy News headline courtesy of Sajiv De Silva, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. Perovskite is a type of mineral that has a distinctive crystal structure and significant attention in recent years due to the potential applications in various fields. And now scientists from the Nanyang Technological University have found an effective, stable, and environmentally friendly perovskite solar cell as a low-cost, high-efficiency alternative to traditional silicon solar cells. Perovskite solar cells are produced from several layers of materials, including a perovskite layer that harvests light together with a capping layer. The capping layer is overlaid onto the perovskite layer to guard the solar cell from atmospheric factors like heat and moisture, and to boost the performance of the cell. Even though the production of perovskite solar cells is more economical and has enhanced efficiency, its commercial manufacturing has not yet materialized. Dr. Ye Sin-yun, research fellow from the NTU, School of Physical and Mathematical Sciences, and a lead researcher on the project, explained, "One of the biggest drawbacks of using perovskite solar cells is their impact on the environment. But by enabling zinc and other non-toxic metals to be used in the capping layer, our innovation potentially solves a major obstacle that prevents the widespread use of perovskite solar cells." New Mexico dog missing for 7 years found 1,700 miles away walking down South Carolina Road, is the Giddy News headline courtesy of Kelly Bender with People, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. A dog who went missing in 2015 in Farmington, New Mexico turned up in Travelers Rest, South Carolina. A Travelers Rest resident named Jennifer was sitting on her porch one rainy evening when she spotted a limping dog on the road near her home. Jennifer stated, "My first thought was, I need to take him to the emergency vet and get him checked for a microchip." Jennifer followed through on her intuition, and the dog did have a microchip, but the owner linked to the dog, whose name is Nugget, lived almost 2,000 miles away in Farmington, New Mexico. Jennifer texted the phone number provided as the owner's contact on the microchip and reached Jesse Springer. Springer was shocked to hear that her beloved dog, who went missing over 7 years ago, had turned up alive. The Carolina Loving Hound Rescue worked with Jennifer and Springer to reunite the owner with Nugget, who is now 16 years old, by covering Springer's flight to South Carolina. Texas researchers use okra to remove microplastics from wastewater, is the Giddy News headline courtesy of Tara Mazula McKay with Southern Living, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. Many think of okra as a vegetable for deep frying, throwing into a pot of gumbo, or stewing with tomatoes. But, thanks to a new study out of Tarleton State University in Fort Worth, Texas, the pods are now being seen in an entirely new light. The researchers discovered that food-grade plant extracts from okra have the power to remove microplastics from wastewater. Currently, the majority of microplastics are removed by adding flocculants, which are sticky chemicals that attract microplastics, to the water and then waiting for them to form large clumps that sink to the bottom where they are removed. The problem here is that other substances may bind to them that could potentially be toxic or harmful to the body. Additionally, some of the substances used as flocculants can become toxic under certain conditions. However, the recent study found that the same polysaccharides that cause okra to leave a sticky substance on your fingers when cutting and to turn slimy when added to heat can also make great flocculants. The study found that polysaccharides from okra and fenugreek were best for removing microplastics from ocean water, while a combination of okra and tamarind worked best for fresh water. Additionally, plant-based flocculants can be implemented easily in existing water treatment facilities. Tiny data center used to heat public swimming pool is the Giddy News headline courtesy of Zoe Kleinman with BBC News, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. BBC News recently revealed that an increasing number of public swimming pools have closed since 2019, with rising energy costs cited as a significant reason. Sean Day, who runs the Exmouth Leisure Center, said he had been expecting the center's energy bills to rise by £100,000 this year. But now, heat generated by a washing machine-sized data center is being used to heat the center's swimming pool and is expected to save them those thousands of pounds. The data center was provided to the council-run center free of charge by startup Deep Green, who charges its regular clients to use its computing power for artificial intelligence and machine learning. Deep Green founder Mark Bjornsgaard said the company would also refund the leisure center's electricity costs for running the digital boiler. The solution also addresses the issue that data centers have with getting rid of the tremendous amount of heat that they generate, which is a costly problem for them. Bjornsgaard stated, "What we've done is taken a data center to where the heat is useful." And now 7 other England pools have signed on to the mutually beneficial program. Mom describes shock of winning $2 million jackpot after paying for daughter's cancer treatment, is the Giddy News headline courtesy of Good Morning America, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. A Florida woman who spent her life savings helping her daughter beat breast cancer is now a millionaire. 74-year-old Geraldine Gimblett of Lakeland, Florida, bought a winning lottery ticket exactly 1 day after Gimblett's daughter completed her final treatment for breast cancer. The $10 ticket was a $2 million winner for Gimblett and was the last available ticket that the store had of her favorite scratch-off game. When Gimblett claimed the prize at the lottery's headquarters in Tallahassee, she did so alongside her daughter and granddaughter. Gimblett's daughter, Laurencia Jackson, said she was shocked to learn her mom had won the lottery just 1 day after Jackson rang the bell at a local hospital, signifying the end of her breast cancer treatment. Gimblett said that using her life savings to pay for Jackson's cancer treatment came naturally to her as a mother. "I really didn't think about it," she said. "I just did what I had to do." A living pantry. How an urban food forest in Arizona became a model for climate action is the Giddy News headline courtesy of Samuel Gilbert with The Guardian, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. Dunbar Spring is a neighborhood near downtown Tucson, Arizona that's unlike any other in the city. Its unpaved sidewalks are lined with native food-bearing trees and shrubs fed by rainwater diverted from city streets. One single block has over 100 plant species, including native goji berries, desert ironwood with edamame-like seeds, and tuberosa bushes with cucumber-flavored flowers. This urban food forest began almost 30 years ago, and it provides food for residents, roughage for livestock, and a relieving canopy shade. "We're creating a living pantry," said Brad Lancaster, resident and co-founder of the Dunbar Spring Neighborhood Foresters Organization, which planted the urban food forest. Dunbar Springs Urban Food Forest began in September 1996 when residents gathered for a community-wide tree planting event. Since then, neighborhood foresters have planted more than 1,700 trees and thousands more understory plants. For Lancaster, surviving and thriving in an increasingly hot and dry world will require dramatic and necessary changes to how we live. He stated, "We need to adapt ourselves and our practices in a way that doesn't just serve us, but the living systems that allow us to be here." Experimental pill sees cancer vanish entirely in a third of acute leukemia patients is the Giddy News headline, courtesy of Imane El Attila with Euronews, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. Revumenib is a new class of targeted therapy for acute leukemia that inhibits a specific protein called menin. The drug works by reprogramming leukemia cells back into normal cells. More than half of the patients enrolled in an early clinical trial responded positively to the drug, and one-third had a complete remission with no cancer detectable in their blood. All patients previously had seen their leukemia return after other treatments or had never responded well to traditional chemotherapy drugs in the first place. Among them was a 23-year-old Lithuanian architect whose doctors had even considered palliative care to ease her suffering. She stated, "I was desperate. It was like living through a horrible movie. I felt like death was imminent, and I was just 21 years old." However, once she started taking revumenib 2 years ago, she made a full recovery. Since then, she has been able to resume her normal life, graduating from college and working at an architecture studio. Study co-authored Dr. Gaius Issa, a leukemia physician at the MD Anderson Cancer Center at the University of Texas, stated, "This is definitely a breakthrough, and it's a result of years of science." Greece makes hundreds of beaches wheelchair-friendly is the Giddy News headline, courtesy of Tassos Kokkinidis with the Greek Reporter, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. Greece is making hundreds of beaches wheelchair-friendly by installing the Greek-designed C-Track system for wheelchairs. The system is a free service that offers unassisted sea access to people with disabilities and mobility issues. It's described as an innovative technological assistant that promotes autonomy, quality, and wellness in everyday life. Tourism Minister Vasilis Kakilias stated, "Equal access to the sea is an inalienable human right." He continued by stating that people with disabilities and people with limited mobility will be given the opportunity to participate in healthy beach activities with family and friends, enhancing the quality of life for everyone. Further, fully accessible beaches contribute to the development of the local economy by attracting visitors with disabilities or those with limited mobility such as elderly people, pregnant women, and people with temporary injuries. 74-year-old musician Otis Taylor gets Denver High School diploma decades after being expelled for his hair, is the Giddy News headline, courtesy of Tori Mason with CBS News, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. A musician who was expelled from a Denver high school over 50 years ago has received his diploma. Otis Taylor was kicked out of Manual High School in 1966 because of his hair. This was decades before laws ending racial hair discrimination. Otis Taylor remembers loving shop and art class and being on the gymnastics team, but he doesn't remember much about the day that he was expelled. Taylor, who was 17 at the time, stated that the whole school district was coming down on people who didn't look how they wanted you to look, and the administrators gave him an ultimatum: cut his hair or leave. Taylor did not cut his hair. He says his mom was upset and his dad was livid. After Taylor was expelled, he went to California to live with his father. In the time since, he became an award-winning musician who's played on over a dozen blues albums, and now Manual High School has righted a wrong by granting Taylor a diploma. When asked if he wonders if life would be different had he cut his hair, Taylor stated, "My kids went to college, my wife loves me, and we've been married for 37 years. How can I regret?" Taiwan amends law to allow same-sex couples to adopt, is the Giddy News headline, courtesy of Jono Thompson with Taiwan News, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. 4 years after Taiwan legalized same-sex marriage, the legislature has now passed an amendment to the law allowing same-sex couples to legally adopt children. The change makes the process of adoption for those married to same-sex partners the same as for any other couple under Taiwan's existing laws. New Power Party legislator Claire Wang said that what is most important is that parents love and respect their children, and gender and sexuality should have no bearing on whether or not a parent is suitable for adoption or not. The Taiwan Alliance to Promote Civil Partnership Rights said the outcome was the result of a long-standing initiative by advocacy and human rights groups, gay people, and gay parents. The group released the following statement. This success once again proves that Taiwan's social consensus is to protect the human rights of LGBTI people and promote gender equality. In the future, we will continue to work towards equal rights based on this consensus. Researchers treat depression by reversing brain signals traveling the wrong way, is the Giddy News headline, courtesy of Nina Bai with Stanford Medicine, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. Powerful magnetic pulses applied to the scalp to stimulate the brain can bring fast relief to many severely depressed patients for whom standard treatments have failed. Research led by Stanford Medicine scientists has found that the transcranial magnetic stimulation, aka TMS, treatment works by reversing the direction of abnormal brain signals. The FDA-cleared treatment known as Stanford Neuromodulation Therapy incorporates advanced imaging technologies to guide stimulation with high-dose patterns of magnetic pulses that can modify brain activity related to major depression. The researchers recruited 33 patients who had been diagnosed with treatment-resistant major depressive disorder. They compared data from these patients with that of 85 healthy controls without depression. When they analyzed data across the entire brain, one connection stood out. In the normal brain, the interior insula, a region that integrates bodily sensations, sends signals to a region that governs emotions, the anterior cingulate cortex. In 3/4 of the participants with depression, however, the typical flow of activity was reversed. The more severe the depression, the higher the proportion of signals that traveled the wrong way. Those with the most severe depression and the most misdirected brain signals were the most likely to benefit from the treatment. Indigenous-led bison repopulation projects are helping the animal thrive again in Alberta, is the Giddy News headline, courtesy of Muhammad Rashini with CBC, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. There was a point in time when as many as 60 million bison roamed the North American Great Plains, a flatland region that includes Alberta, Saskatchewan, and several U.S. states. But due in large part to the overhunting of bison, their numbers dropped so much that plains bison no longer existed in Canada by the 1900s, and the population of wood bison were as low as 200. Violet McGuinness, consultation director for the Tsuut'ina Nation, stated, "We used to follow the buffalo. Wherever it roamed, we followed it. We got everything off the buffalo. Then the newcomers came, the treaties were signed, and we were put on little tracts of land where we could not follow the buffalo." However, for the past 40 years, the Tsuut'ina Nation members have taken care of a buffalo herd located in the middle of their community. Each November, the herd is rounded up to be weighed, dewormed, vaccinated, and tagged. And in recent years, indigenous peoples like the Tsuut'ina Nation have started several bison reintroduction projects. The Tsuut'ina Nation is also helping other indigenous groups, such as the Onion Lake Cree Nation in Saskatchewan, to reintroduce bison to their lands. McGuinness said, "It's fulfilling because our spirituality is so dependent on our connection with the land and the animals. It makes us whole again." An Arizona plant will pull CO2 from the air and trap it in concrete, is the Giddy News headline, courtesy of Maria Gallucci with Canary Media, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. For the last 2 centuries, nearly all the concrete used in buildings, bridges, dams, and roads has been held together with one key ingredient, Portland cement. This limestone and clay fusion is inexpensive, but also is extremely carbon intensive to produce. However, startups and established construction firms recently have begun devising lower carbon ways of making the world's most widely used building material. Blocklight, a family-owned masonry business, announced plans to produce concrete by combining Carbon Built's alternative cement process with direct air capture technology by air capture that removes carbon dioxide from the sky. These three partners received a grant from the Four Corners Carbon Coalition, a network of local governments in Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico. Additionally, the Block Light Initiative isn't the only effort to pair CO2 harnessing technologies with concrete production. Heirloom uses limestone slabs to absorb CO2 from the ambient air, then crushes it in a kiln and separates the gas from waste rock. Meanwhile, Carbon Cure injects CO2 into wastewater that has been used to clean out concrete trucks, producing a mineral that strengthens concrete. Recently, these two companies successfully combined their technologies in a demonstration in California. Woman saves man's life, then his daughter's life 6 years apart is the Giddy News headline courtesy of Good Morning America, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. As a paramedic, saving people is Christy Hadfield's day job. That's how she came to save a father in West Virginia named John Cunningham back in 2016. Hadfield stayed in touch with Cunningham through social media, as she often does with former patients. 6 years later, when Cunningham's 42-year-old daughter, Molly Jones, posted on Facebook about needing a kidney transplant, Hadfield noticed the request and decided she would help. Jones stated that Hadfield said to her, "Listen, kid, I saved your dad and I'm going to save you too." Hadfield was eventually cleared to donate, and the two women met for the first time 1 week before the transplant procedure. Since the successful transplant, Jones stated, "It was amazing. I felt like I was alive again. Christy gave me back my life." Deforestation in Brazil's Amazon drops 34% in the first half of 2023 is the Giddy News headline of Caroline Pulice and Jake Spring with Reuters, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. Deforestation in Brazil's Amazon fell 34% in the first half of 2023, hitting its lowest level in 4 years as President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva institutes tougher environmental policies. Brazil's government recently unveiled its plans to meet Lula's pledge to eliminate deforestation in the Amazon by 2030, using a long list of measures including strengthened law enforcement against environmental crimes and green economic development. Environment Minister Marina Silva said that the fall in deforestation was a direct result of the Lula government quickly ramping up resources for environmental enforcement. Silva stated, "We are making every effort to ensure that our anti-deforestation plan is already in full swing." First Alzheimer's drug to slow disease progression gets full FDA approval is the Giddy News headline courtesy of Meg Terrell, Nadia Kunang, and Tammy Luby with CNN, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration granted full approval to the Alzheimer's drug Leqembi, the first medicine proven to slow the course of the memory-robbing disease. Leqembi, from drug makers Eisai and Biogen, received accelerated approval based on evidence that it clears amyloid plaque buildups in the brain that are associated with Alzheimer's disease. Teresa Baracchio, acting director of the Office of Neuroscience in the FDA's Center for Drug Evaluation and Research, said that this action is the first verification that a drug targeting the underlying disease process of Alzheimer's has shown clinical benefit in this devastating disease. This treatment, while not a cure, can give people in the early stages of Alzheimer's more time to maintain their independence and to do the things that they love. This gives people more months of recognizing their spouse, their children, and their grandchildren. This also means more time for a person to drive safely, to accurately and promptly take care of family finances, and to participate fully in hobbies and interests. Revolutionary solar power cell innovations break key energy threshold is the Giddy News headline courtesy of Damian Carrington with The Guardian, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. Today's solar panels use silicon-based cells but have been rapidly approaching their maximum conversion of sunlight to electricity of 29%. However, solar power cells have now raced past the key milestone of 30% energy efficiency thanks to innovations by multiple research groups around the world. One group, led by Professor Steve Albrecht at the Helmholtz Center Berlin for Materials and Energy in Germany, has now published information about how they achieved efficiencies of up to 32.5% for silicon perovskite cells. The other group, led by Dr. Zhenyu Chen at the Federal Institute of Technology in Lausanne, Switzerland, demonstrated an efficiency of 31.25% and said that tandem cells had the potential for both high efficiency and low manufacturing costs. The breakthrough comes from adding a layer of perovskite on top of the silicon layer. This perovskite captures blue light from the visible spectrum, while the silicon captures red light, boosting the total light captured overall. Experts say that if the scaling up of production of the perovskite silicon tandem cells proceeds smoothly, they could be commercially available within 5 years, about the same time that silicon-only cells will reach their maximum efficiency. 8-year-old raising money to help people experiencing homelessness go to the Tulsa State Fair is the Giddy News headline courtesy of Scott Martin with Fox 23 Tulsa, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. An 8-year-old girl teamed up with a Tulsa, Oklahoma nonprofit to give people experiencing homelessness a night of fun at the Tulsa State Fair. Lila Thomas launched Fair Share, a new program through the Be Heard movement. She came up with the idea after she was at a Tulsa parade and saw someone who was homeless. Lila stated, "I thought they might have a lot of fun at the fair, and I told my mom, and she thought it was a great idea, so I'm going to bring them to the fair." With Fair Share, people are selected by recommendations from organizations that work closely with unhoused individuals. Evan Duguid, president and founder of the Be Heard movement, said it's much more than just a trip to the fair. He said people at their lowest point often feel inadequate. This gives them a chance to feel seen, loved, and valued. Duguid stated, "They'll come here, get a shower, work with a case manager, then get to go to the fair. It's a huge way to restore dignity." Intuitive pet who hears for deaf owner named National Cat of the Year is the Giddy News headline courtesy of Aisling Grace with The Independent, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. A cat named Zebby, who helps his deaf owner by alerting her to sounds around the house, has won a national award. Animal welfare charity Cats Protection named Zebby their National Cat of the Year in recognition of the way he supports 66-year-old owner Genevieve Moss. Miss Moss of Chesterfield, Derbyshire, outlined the ways in which he assists her, saying, "He'll come and tap me when the phone is ringing, and then I can pop in my hearing aid and take the call. In the night, if there's an unusual noise, he will bat me on my head to wake me up and let me know. And if someone is at the door, he'll pace about in front of me until I get the message." Zebby also likes to bring Miss Moss things such as her slippers and the newspaper from the doormat. Miss Moss stated, "I am so proud of Zebby for showing the world how intuitive and caring cats can be, and what a positive effect they can have on people's lives." New bionic hand allows users to control each finger with unprecedented accuracy is the Giddy News headline courtesy of Camille Bello and Rosalind Min with Euronews, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. In a world first, surgeons and engineers have developed a new bionic hand that allows users with arm amputations to control each finger as though it was their own body. The innovation could revolutionize the way prosthetic limbs are designed and used. Typical prostheses use remnant muscles, which are the muscles that remain in the residual limb after an amputation. But for individuals with amputations higher up on the arm, insufficient muscles remain to generate the necessary signals to enable control of the lost arm and hand joints, meaning controlling the prosthetic limb in a way that feels natural is simply not possible. The key to the new bionic hand is a technique called neuromuscular reconstruction. In this procedure, surgeons rewire the nerves in the residual limb so that they control different muscles. This allows users to generate more complex movements with the bionic hand, such as flexing and extending all 5 fingers to pick up small objects or type on a keyboard. Besides the neuromuscular reconstruction, the new implant also features a titanium implant that is placed within the residual bone connecting it to the body. This provides a more stable and comfortable attachment point for the hand, while also allowing for more natural movement. AI-powered hate speech detection will moderate voice chat in Call of Duty, is the Giddy News headline courtesy of Benj Edwards with Ars Technica, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. Video game company Activision has introduced real-time AI-powered voice chat moderation in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. The company partnered with Modulate to implement this feature, using technology called ToxMod to identify and take action against hate speech, bullying, harassment, and discrimination, all of which violate the game's code of conduct. Detection happens in real time, with the system categorizing and flagging toxic language violations as they are detected. These detected violations may require additional reviews of associated recordings to identify context before enforcement is determined. Finally, a human employee then determines whether a true violation has occurred. ToxMod will supplement Call of Duty's existing anti-toxicity measures, which include text filtering in 14 languages and an in-game player reporting system. Activision says that data from its previous anti-toxicity efforts have restricted voice or text chat for over 1 million accounts that violated its code of conduct. Moreover, 20% of those who received a first warning did not reoffend, suggesting that clear feedback is useful for moderating player behavior. Players that do not wish to have their voice moderated can disable in-game voice chat. Canada study debunks stereotypes of homeless people's spending habits is the Giddy News headline, courtesy of Leland Seiko with The Guardian, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. The widely held stereotype that people experiencing homelessness are most likely to spend extra cash on drugs, alcohol, and tobacco has been upended by a study that found that a majority used a $7,500 payment mostly on rent, food, housing, transit, and clothes. Researchers at the University of British Columbia reported how they tracked the spending of 50 homeless individuals after they were given $7,500 versus 65 who did not receive any cash. The study built on a previous U.S. survey of 1,114 people that tracked public mistrust in unhoused people's ability to manage money, where participants predicted the recipients of an unconditional $7,500 cash transfer would spend most of it on temptation goods such as alcohol, tobacco, and drugs. The researchers found the cash recipients each spent an average of 99 fewer days homeless than the control group, increased their savings more, and also cost society less by spending less time in shelters. The results give added weight to calls for a guaranteed basic income that would help adults cover essential living expenses. Mexico is likely to get its first female president after top parties choose 2 women as candidates, is the Giddy News headline, courtesy of Maria Verza with the Associated Press, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. With the selection of former Mexico City Mayor Claudia Sheinbaum as the candidate of the country's ruling Morena party in next June's election, Mexico will for the first time have 2 women from its main political movements competing for the presidency. Sheinbaum, as well as the opposition candidate Xochitl Galvez, both say that Mexico is ready to be led by a woman. President Andres Manuel López Obrador's Morena party announced that Sheinbaum, a climate scientist, defeated 5 internal party rivals, all men, to become the nominee. She holds a PhD in engineering and served on the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change that won a shared Nobel Peace Prize in 2007. On the other hand, Galvez emerged from virtual obscurity, helped largely by daily public criticism of López Obrador, to become the consensus candidate of the opposition. She is a tech entrepreneur who started out selling food in the street before going on to study computers. The independent Galvez will represent the Broad Front for Mexico, a coalition of the Conservative National Action Party, the Small Progressive Democratic Revolution Party, and the Old Guard Institutional Revolutionary Party that held Mexico's presidency without interruption between 1929 and 2000. Prehistoric bird believed to be extinct returns to the wild, is the Giddy News headline, courtesy of Nisha Zahid with the Greek Reporter, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. The recent release of 18 takahe birds in the Lake Wakapitu Waimori Valley on New Zealand's South Island holds immense significance. These large flightless prehistoric birds were once thought to be extinct and had not been seen roaming the slopes for nearly a century. The unique takahe developed without the company of land mammals and so adapted to take on the roles that mammals usually play in the ecosystem. After their numbers were severely reduced due to the introduction of animals like stoats, cats, ferrets, and rats by European settlers, the birds were eventually declared extinct in 1898. However, they were rediscovered in 1948, and since then their population has been steadily increasing thanks to the efforts of conservationists. Today there are around 500 takahe, and their numbers are growing by approximately 8% each year. Cherokee voters embrace recreational marijuana, making a historic first in North Carolina, is the Giddy News headline, courtesy of Rex Hodge with WLOS ABC 13 News, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. In a historic move, voters in the Cherokee Nation approved a referendum calling for legalizing recreational marijuana use for adults on the reservation. Now it's up to the tribal council to pass legislation governing the sale of marijuana. This would make the reservation the first place in North Carolina where marijuana could be legally possessed and used. The tribe already decriminalized possession of small amounts of marijuana in 2021 and also approved medical use of cannabis. With the passage, just how to regulate selling marijuana will fall to tribal leaders such as Chief Mitchell Hicks. Hicks stated that an ordinance clearly defining parameters will have to be constructed and that they must carefully identify where revenues would be directed for tribal services. He stated that housing, healthcare, and education are the critical areas to address. The first human organ created inside an animal opens the door to manufacturing spare parts for people, is the Giddy News headline, courtesy of Manuel and Sede with El Pias, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. In the United States alone, there is an organ transplant waiting list of 100,000 people, and 17 of them die every day. However, a team of researchers at the Guangzhou Institute of Biomedicine and Health in China has for the first time successfully generated a human organ blueprint in another animal. The experiment, conducted with humanized kidneys in pig embryos, represents a step towards using other mammals as a source of organs for transplants. Researchers reprogrammed adult human cells to recover their capacity to form any bodily organ or tissue. The team inserted these pluripotent human cells into pig embryos, which are genetically modified beforehand so that they do not develop porcine kidneys. The pig-human embryos then were gestated in sows for up to 28 days. Afterwards, about half of the cells in their kidneys were human cells. There is still much work to be done in the process, which includes addressing the ethical dilemmas of using other animals and the potential dangers to them, but the results are considered a major step forward by researchers. Las Vegas Raiders Allegiant Stadium becomes the first NFL venue powered by 100% renewable energy, is the Giddy News headline, courtesy of Fox 5 News, and a link to the source will be included in the description below. The Las Vegas Raiders announced that Allegiant Stadium has become the first NFL stadium powered exclusively by renewable energy. The Silver and Black's Monday Night Football game against the Green Bay Packers marked the first NFL game to be fully operated by renewable power. Raiders president Sandra Douglas Morgan stated that the Las Vegas Raiders are proud to set the bar in sustainability, not only for the NFL but for sports around the world. She continued, "We have a responsibility to our fans, players, community, and planet to tackle sustainability head on and set a new standard for sustainability in sports." In addition to renewable energy, the Raiders said that their other sustainability initiatives include a waste diversion system, field grass clipping compost, food scrap collection, and conversion of cigarette waste to energy. All right, that's it. I would love to hear what you thought about this episode of the Giddy News. And if you have a positive news story that you'd like for me to share, please include a link in the comments down below. And until next time, take care of yourself, and thanks for watching.